Introduction. Unlike all my other missions, which I have chosen for myself, the responsibility for the nation and people of Tibet was placed upon me the moment I was recognized as the Dalai Lama at the age of 2. It was formalized in 1950 when I became Tibet's temporal leader at the age of 16. Since that time, I have carried the duty of protecting Tibet and its people, as well as our culture, at the center of my heart, and will do so as long as I am alive. This principal commitment is in addition to the other commitments that I have taken on as part of my life's mission, including promoting fundamental human values based on a universal or secular approach to ethics, fostering interreligious understanding and harmony, and encouraging a deeper appreciation of India's ancient wisdom and knowledge. In these other domains, I feel happy that I have been able to make some tangible contributions through wide-ranging conversations, the writing of books, and extensive international visits. In the case of Tibet, my first and most intimate charge, it has been much more difficult. I have tried my best, ceaselessly, to make openings for a negotiated settlement with the Chinese communists who invaded my country in 1950. There have been 3 periods of intense dialogue. In the 1950s, when I was resident in Tibet as a young leader. In the 1980s, when the Chinese leader, Deng Xiaoping, opened up China. And in the first decade of this century, in all other aspects of my life and in all other domains of my work, I have engaged with people who have shown a commitment to shared vision, an openness to trust, the honesty to express one's thoughts even in disagreement, and the willingness to truly engage and learn. With the Chinese Communist leadership, from Chairman Mao Zedong to President Xi Jinping, in the current era, sadly, the situation has been very different. I have often complained that the Chinese Communist leaders have only a mouth to speak, but no ear to listen. Take, for example, the White Paper on Tibet issued by the Chinese government in May 2021. The document began with the statement that, after the Chinese invasion of 1950, the people of Tibet broke free from the fetters of invading imperialism for good, embarking on a bright road of unity. And today Tibetans enjoy a stable social environment, economic and cultural prosperity. According to this narrative, ever since Communist China's peaceful liberation of Tibet, the Tibetan nation and people have been on a continuous upward trajectory to freedom, prosperity, and contentment within the family of the People's Republic of China, PRC. Had this been true at any period since the invasion, how does one explain more than 7 decades of continued resistance and resentment of China's presence on the part of the Tibetans? It seems that Communist China has a simple answer. It's because of the splittist activity of the Dalai clique. What they are referring to here is our long, non-violent campaign for the freedom of our people and our efforts to save our unique language, culture, ecology, and religion. We Tibetans are the people who have traditionally inhabited the Tibetan plateau for millennia and have every right to continue to be the custodians in our own homeland. The issue of Tibet is not about the matter of economic development, which we acknowledge as having improved significantly since the economic liberalization of the People's Republic of China. The issue is about a people's need and right to exist with their distinct language, culture, and religious heritage. Since the people inside Tibet have no freedom to speak out, it has fallen to me especially, since I came into exile in 1959, to be the voice of the voiceless. While our goal remains to find a mutually agreeable negotiated solution, that aim would require, in the end, that the Tibetans and the Chinese sit down together and talk. Until such a negotiated solution is found, We Tibetans who are in the free world have the moral responsibility to continue to speak on behalf of our brothers and sisters inside Tibet. Doing so is neither anti-China nor splittist. Indeed, far from splitting, being honest and open is the only way to create the basis on which each side can understand and accommodate the needs of the other. Only when we have created an atmosphere where both sides can speak and negotiate freely can there be a lasting settlement. We have been fortunate to have so many friends around the world who have stood in solidarity with us and our cause. Governments, especially at the parliamentary level, and international organizations across the free world have strongly supported our approach, which seeks genuine autonomy for Tibet, a middle way between the independence cherished by the Tibetans on the one hand, and on the other, the current reality on the ground that denies agency or any meaningful self-rule for the Tibetan people in their own homeland. A series of resolutions has been passed by the United Nations, by the European Parliament, and in many countries, including especially the United States, where, in addition to resolutions, important acts have been adopted. We have been particularly fortunate in having received such a generous welcome and such continuing support from India and its people, including successive governments since I arrived in India as a refugee. From India's first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, to the present Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, India has never wavered in its hospitality, generosity, and support to me, the Tibetan refugees, and our efforts at educating our youth and the rebuilding of our culture and institutions in exile. For me personally, this has been deeply heartwarming. Ever since the 7th century, when the Buddhist texts were first translated from Sanskrit into Tibetan, we Tibetans have looked up to India as the land of the noble ones, Aryavarta. Our Buddhist tradition, which we cherish so deeply, came from India. Our written script was invented in the 7th century, taking the Indian Devanagari as its model. Our philosophies, psychology, logic, and cosmology are the gifts of the Indian Nalanda school. Our astrosciences and calendar system are deeply enriched by the Indian Kalachakra Tantra. Our medical science and practice have been influenced by Indian Ayurveda. So, to have found India as my second home has offered me a powerful anchor. I have spent the greater part of my life in India, and I sometimes describe myself as a son of India. My mind has been nourished by India's rich philosophical tradition, while my body has been fed by Indian rice and dal. When I used to travel internationally, I often stated that I am a messenger of two great gifts from India to humanity: religious pluralism and the teaching of ahimsa, the principle of non-violence. I have had more than 7 decades of engagement with the People's Republic of China since 1950. During this long period, we have seen at least 5 different eras within the leadership of the country. First, under Chairman Mao, ideology was prominent amid vast and constant social upheaval, culminating in the disastrous Cultural Revolution. Millions died, and many more suffered tremendously. Then, in the era of Deng Xiaoping, ideology became less important, and the stress was on wealth creation. Deng, in fact, became famous for his slogan, "To get rich is glorious." This was followed by the age of Jiang Zemin, during which Communist Party membership expanded to embrace other sectors of Chinese society under the slogan, "Three represents." Next came the period of Hu Jintao and his slogan, "Socialist Harmonious Society," where, at least on the surface, there was a focus on closing the growing wealth gap that had developed since the era of Deng. Today, China is under the leadership of Xi Jinping, who proclaimed the slogan of "New Era of Socialism with Chinese characteristics. Judging by Xi's last decade in office, when it comes to individual freedom and everyday life, China seems to be reverting to the oppressive policies of Mao's time, but now enforced through state-of-the-art digital technologies of surveillance and control. What we have in China is, in essence, market capitalism tied to a Leninist obsession with state control. This is a fundamental paradox, profoundly unstable, because essential to capitalism is the opening up of the economy, which ultimately requires the opening up of society, while the fixation on control at every level by the party requires the closing of society. These two polar forces are pulling in opposite directions. The question is, how long can this last? Even within a history of approximately 75 years, there has been tremendous change hidden beneath the apparent continuity of a single governing Communist Party. Specifically, between the eras of Mao and Deng, change was fundamental and astonishingly swift. Those who are old enough to remember the Cold War might recall how the Soviet Union seemed so stable and enduring. But when change came, it did so with extraordinary speed and in ways very few Kremlinologists had predicted. One thing is for sure: no totalitarian regime, whether headed by an individual or a party, can last forever, because they abuse the very people they claim to speak for, and also yearning for freedom is a powerful force within human nature. Furthermore, the very nature of their rule, paranoid, suspicious, and afraid of ordinary citizens, makes totalitarian regimes inherently unstable, even if the gun may prevail in the short term. In the case of Communist China, the popular movement of students in 1989 in Tiananmen Square demonstrated the deep aspiration of the people for individual freedom and a real opening. Regardless of how China might look today from the outside, the simple fact remains that this aspiration for greater freedom has not gone away. Thanks to Deng's turn to capitalism and his opening up of China to the outside world, it is undeniable that today China is a major economic power. And of course, with economic power comes military might and international political influence. How the country exercises these newfound powers over the next decade or two will define its course for the foreseeable future. Will it choose the path of dominance and aggression, both internally and externally? Or will it choose the path of responsibility and embrace a constructive leading role on the world stage in meeting the collective challenges of humanity, such as peace, climate change, and the alleviation of poverty? Today, China stands at a crossroads. That it chooses the latter path is in the interest not only of the whole world, but of the Chinese people themselves. In essence, this is a matter of the very heart of China as a country and its people. Here, I believe that resolving the long-standing problem of Tibet through dialogue would be a powerful signal, both to its own people and to the world, that China is choosing the second of these two paths. What is required on the part of their leadership are long-term vision, courage, and magnanimity,